You can have the perfect funnel, the perfect offer, the perfect content calendar, and still find yourself stuck at the same revenue ceiling year after year. And it maybe even feels like you keep repeating the same year in business. And it's not because the strategy is wrong. I mean, it could be because the strategy is wrong, but it might not be because of the strategy. It could very well be because there's a part of you that hasn't agreed to become the person who you need to become. So today we're going to talk about why revenue follows identity, not the other way around, and what to actually do about it. So let's go. Okay, if you have been listening for a while, you know that we talk a lot about the unconscious mind here, the layer beneath the business strategy, beneath all the things that you do every day, the output, the tasks, the behavior. Last episode, we talked about time freedom and why so many founders can't actually step back from their business, even when they say that what they want is more time freedom. So this episode, we're going to go beneath that into the identity. So here's the pattern that I see constantly with founders at every stage of revenue. They set a goal. Let's say they want to double their revenue this year. And they go straight to the strategy, a new offer, a new funnel, a new ad campaign. And some of that works, at least for a while. But then something strange starts to happen. They get close to that new number. And things start to fall apart. Client cancels a contract, or they get sick. They procrastinate on launching and they don't even know why they're doing it. They undercharge on the offer that they were so excited about a month ago, and then suddenly they're starting to doubt whether they should charge that much for it. And that's not bad luck. It's not bad timing. It's not the economy. That's identity, an identity lag. So let's talk about what is identity lag, what it actually is. Your unconscious mind's job isn't to make you happy or successful, and it certainly isn't to make you wealthy. Its job is simply to keep you safe, and safe means familiar. It has a working model of who you are now, how much money you earn, how visible you are, how much space you're allowed to take up. And that model was built long ago, often in early childhood, often from things that have nothing to do with business at all. And when your conscious goals outpace that internal model, you get what we call in NLP incongruence. And incongruence is uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable enough that your unconscious mind will find a way to close the gap between who you are now and who you want to be. Usually by pulling your behavior back down to match the old identity, rather than letting the old identity catch up to your new goal or allowing your identity to shift to match the new goal. And you cannot outperform your identity. However you see yourself is how you will continually show up. And this is why people self-sabotage right before a big breakthrough. You've seen it happen. Maybe you've seen it happen with friends of yours, or you've experienced it yourself. Right before you're about to break through to that new level, you start to pull back. You start to cancel things. You get sick. Things start falling apart. And this is also why imposter syndrome spikes at the exact moment when you start succeeding. And founders who say they want to scale up keep hiring and then can't delegate. This is also why the same revenue ceiling shows up launch after launch. No matter what's being sold or what the price point is, you keep ending up at the same revenue year after year, like wash, rinse, and repeat. And none of this has anything to do with discipline or how hard you're working or how good your offers are or how smart you are. This is all a congruence problem, the congruence problem with identity. So here's where the ceiling gets installed. And I want to get really specific here because mindset can sound so vague, and it is vague. But this ceiling, this revenue ceiling, isn't abstract. It was installed in you, usually through early modeling. When you were young, you modeled the people around you. You modeled your parents. Maybe you had a role model, someone you looked up to. Could be a family member, could be a celebrity, could be a teacher, coach, but there's somebody that you modeled. But typically when it comes to money, you probably modeled your parents and how they interacted with money. So you watched what your parents did with money, the stress they felt around money, the worth they tied to money. Before you were old enough to even question whether this was true or whether you agreed or not, you modeled their behavior with money. So if you watched your parents struggle financially, you adopted those behaviors. If your parents had a really negative relationship with money, you adopted that. If your parents had a really healthy relationship with money and say they were really good about investing and saving and strategizing for the future, you modeled that too. So think back to your childhood and what was your parents' or your guardian's relationship with money? There are identity statements that you absorbed during your younger years that were maybe never reevaluated. Things like, people like us don't blank. People like us don't go on beach vacations. People like us don't travel to Europe. People like us don't buy a boat. People like us don't drive a car like that. People like us don't shop in these stores. Or money changes people. Maybe you heard that growing up. Or if I make more than someone, insert person here, that means something bad about our relationship. For example, maybe you heard your mother say, well, I can't make more than your father makes. And if you are a female listening to that growing up, you might have felt like you can't earn more than your partner makes. Maybe you heard things like money doesn't grow on trees, or rich people are greedy. I heard that one a lot growing up, that rich people are greedy. And I had to do a lot of unraveling of that as I got older. It could also be a single charged event, a single one-time event that really shifted your perception of money when you were growing up. So sometimes it's one moment, getting shamed for asking for something you wanted, or watching someone's business fail. If you were a child of an entrepreneurial parent and you saw them struggle or you saw the business fail, that would have an impact on you. Or it could be a specific comment from a parent or a teacher that got encoded as a rule about what is safe. I watched my dad go through a bankruptcy when I was younger. I know that had a huge imprint on me and my beliefs about money and my feelings about money. Now, the important thing here is that these aren't character flaws of yours. These were beliefs or decisions that you made at a time when they were protective for you, when it made sense for you to believe these things. The problem now is that they're still running the show as if you're still at that age, in that context, with those resources. But you're not that age. You are no longer in that same context, and you have new resources and more understanding of how the world works. So it's time to let go of those old patterns, those old beliefs. And this is exactly the kind of work that I do with my clients when I work with them through timeline therapy and hypnotherapy, is getting to the root of these beliefs or limiting decisions and disconnecting them in the past so that you can believe something new. You can take on a new identity about money, about revenue, about your worth going forward. So if revenue follows identity, the question changes. Instead of what do I need to do to hit this revenue goal, it becomes who do I need to become to be congruent with having this? And this isn't about affirmations. Standing in front of the mirror saying, I'm a six-figure founder. While your nervous system is disagreeing with you and screaming that no, that is not true, that just creates more internal conflict. And we have talked about that in many episodes of why affirmations don't work. And I know every time I talk about that, people challenge me on it, and I will dig my heels in every time and say affirmations affirm what you believe to be true. So if you are telling yourself, I'm a six-figure founder, but your bank account is in the negative and you don't know how you're paying your bills next month, that's going to create a lot of internal conflict. And all you are affirming is the conflict, the negative emotions, the doubt, because you feel that gap between what you're saying and what you believe and what's actually true. And that gap becomes even more evident, and you begin to enforce the old identity, the identity you're trying to change. So real identity work looks like this. 1, get really specific about the current identity. Not vague things like, oh, I have internal money blocks. Okay, sure, but actually name the belief. If I earn more money than my mother did, I'm betraying her, for an example. Or being visible means I'll be criticized or judged. Just being vaguely aware that you have limiting decisions or money blocks or limiting beliefs doesn't do anything. You need to be specific. What are the beliefs? What do I actually believe about money? Not what you should believe, not what your coach has told you to believe, not what some self-help guru has taught you to believe, but what do you actually believe is true about money? When you get quiet with yourself, when you get still and you go inside, what do you actually believe about money? When you think about money, how does it feel in your body? Do you get excited or do you get nervous? Do you get nauseous? What happens when you think about money? I did a Journey to Prosperity hypnosis the other night, a live event with a group of local business owners. And I asked them that, like, when you think about money, what does that bring to mind? And quite a few of them said that they get a tightening in their stomach, or they get nauseous, or they feel a feeling. They get tense. It feels icky. It feels dirty to them. That's a problem. That is a big problem because your unconscious mind, and this is all unconscious, by the way, but your unconscious mind, if it perceives that something is like icky or gross or dirty or it makes you feel bad, it will actively repel that thing because it doesn't want you to feel gross, doesn't want you to feel anxious. So it'll repel the thing because now it's seen as being bad. So one is you got to get specific about what is the current identity. Two, finding where it was installed. And this is not about blaming anyone. It's just locating it so that you can actually address it at the root instead of managing it just on the surface, which is what most personal development work actually does, is surface level work. But look at, where did it actually come from? Like, I know a lot of my money beliefs, or my old money beliefs, I should say, came from when I was in, I think it was in the fourth grade. I think it was grade 4 or 5. And I remember I went to my dad's house. My parents were divorced. And I would often just go to my dad's house after school because he was right across from the schoolyard. And sometimes I just liked hanging out there. And I went there with a friend and we were in the kitchen and I saw a letter on the kitchen table for bankruptcy, that he had filed for bankruptcy. And I instantly felt my stomach drop. And like, even to this day, I can see this moment so clearly. I can feel my stomach drop. I felt anxious in the moment. I felt a lot of shame because my friend saw it. And what was she going to think about me knowing that my dad had filed for bankruptcy? What does that mean about me? I felt vulnerable. I felt exposed because if my dad didn't have enough money, what does that mean for me? What does that mean for the safety and security that up until that point I had felt? Suddenly my life felt like it blew open and all the security, the safety net was gone. So find out where your beliefs were installed. Again, it's not to blame anyone. You're not going to call up your parents and say, hey, you did this to me. We're not doing that. It's just about understanding where those beliefs came from and what was the context at the time. So find out where it was installed. The third one is update the belief with the resources you have now. You're not 5 or 8 or 17. You're not in that first year of business anymore. You have context. You have skills you didn't have then. You have choice that you maybe didn't have back then. And then 4, rehearse the new identity behaviorally, not just verbally. Affirmations are verbal. They're not active. You're just standing there or sitting and saying the nice words over and over. But identity shifts happen through small, repeated action. Sending the invoice at the new rate. Which, by the way, you send someone your invoice at your new rate, it's only going to be uncomfortable the first time. After that, it's just your rate. Saying no to scope creep. So you have your contract, you have your terms of what you're willing to do for a client. And if they start pushing into other areas, you need to shut that down, or you need to tell them, I can absolutely do this for you for an additional rate. Letting the team member own the project without checking in 3 times. Delegate to your team. Let them do what they do. And each of those is a vote for your new concept of self, your new identity. And these add up over time and start to shape the new identity. It takes time, though. If you want to do it faster, then timeline therapy and hypnotherapy are required. And let's connect this back to last week, to the time freedom episode, because this connects directly to what we were talking about last week. A lot of founders who say that they want time freedom resist it when it's actually available because their identity is fused with being needed. I'm the only one who can take care of this. I'm the only one who will do it right. I need to be busy. If I'm not busy, I'm not productive. Not true. Being the one who always has to have your hands on everything to make sure that it's done right. And that's, and it's also not a scheduling issue. A lot of times people think, well, I just have to manage my time better. It's not a when it comes down to these issues, it's not a time management issue. It's not a delegation issue because you can't delegate yourself out of equating rest with laziness or being needed as being valued. Your identity is the problem, not your calendar. And yes, there is room for time management skills. We talk about that a lot here. Time management is important, but if we're not dealing with the identity underneath the time management, it's not going to be fixed. Okay, so here is your action for this week. Here's what I want you to sit with during the week. I want you to pick a goal that you've been chasing, one that hasn't moved. No matter how much strategy you've thrown at it, no matter how much marketing you've done around it, no matter how much planning you have done. And instead of asking, what's the next tactic? What should I try now? Ask yourself, who would I have to become for this to already be true? And then get really specific about the gap. This is where the work happens. Get really specific about where you are now, who you need to become, and what is that gap. Now, if this episode resonated with you today, I would love for you to share it with another founder in your community who's stuck at a ceiling and they can't explain it. And maybe they keep telling you, I set the same goals year after year and I'm just not achieving it. I just can't get further ahead. Maybe it's someone in your mastermind group, keeps coming in with the same problems week after week or month after month, and they're not seeing any growth. This would be perfect for them to listen to. And if you want to go deeper on this, if you're ready to actually clear what's underneath the pattern rather than just managing it around it, you know where to find me. I'm Teri Holland. This has been Success in Mind, and I will be back with you again next week, my friends. Bye for now.